Good morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Albany, affectionately known as Albany UU. My name is Reverend Sam Trumbore, and I serve as the lead minister for this congregation. And you can tell by those of you who know me that my voice is a little weird today, and that's because I'm just getting over a cold, but I'm in good shape right now, except for my voice. It hasn't quite come back. So it's my hope and dream that I get through the end of the service without getting into a coughing fit. We cast a wide welcome to all, affirming the light you have brought with you this morning. May our service help that light shine brighter, amplifying our collective light for the benefit of all. Our theme for January is finding our center. This can be an individual search as well as a collective search for a center. My focus this morning will be on finding the center of Unitarian Universalism. The Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly created a commission to do just that by reviewing the definition of its institutional identity. That identity is formally written in our bylaws as Article 2, which states the purpose of the organization. This is the location of the 7 principles and the 6 sources. But that isn't all that is in Article 2. It has the purpose of the Unitarian Universalist Association, a commitment not to discriminate, and a statement of freedom of belief. The center of identity is found right there. But is it really who we are today? Is there anything missing? Could they be improved? Could they be written in more effective language while preserving the spirit of the current language? The Article 2 Study Commission has been asking these questions for the last 2 years and has proposed new language that I will be considering in 2 weeks. But before we look at any changes, we need to spend some time examining what is now considered the center of Unitarian Universalism. In the spirit of appreciation for the hard work done to create what we currently have, and curiosity about how it might be even better, more inclusive, more inspirational, more energizing, more accountable, more transforming. Let us join together in the celebration of life.
Good morning. This morning, the prelude comes to us from a Norwegian composer called Ola Gjedo. It's called The Crossing. And as we enter the new year, and we are still very much in the new year, it made me think a lot about review and how we cross into new spaces. So today, I play for you The Crossing.
And let us light our chalice together with the words you'll find in your order of service or on the screen in just a few seconds. Not, let us join together. There they are. Welcoming all free seekers of truth and meaning. We gather to excite the human spirit, inspire its growth and development, to respond morally and ethically to a troubled world, and to sustain a vital and nurturing religious community. We have an opening song that Olga will introduce.
By Shlomo Carlebach. It's called Return Again. In my research, I learned that the music in our hymnal has a changed word. The lyric is return to the home of your soul. Karl Bach's original lyric is return to the land of your soul. And I wanted to bring it up because I thought that was really important as we listen to this music, and as the intention of this music is to bring us back to center, as that we find our center, as we return back to ourselves, that this music was intended as a space to return back to Israel. And that I think that it still will correspond with today, because we can always return back to ourselves too. So today what we'll do is we'll sing Return to the Land of Our Soul first, and then sing what's in your hymnal, Return to the Home of Your Soul. And it'll be, the lyrics will be up on the screen for you to follow along. Rise as you are able.
All right. So we want to go and compose some music listening to that. I'm going to read you Article 2. But I'm going to ask you to do something different with it than just, well, here comes Article 2. I want you to sit with it and see, be inward, kind of think of this as a meditation, taking in these words and just seeing how they land. Which words are you attracted to? Which words just like, oh, I don't like that word, or this phrase. Just sit with what you hear in this and see if you can connect, because there is incredible depth in these words. There is history in a lot of these phrases that goes back to the founding of Unitarianism, Universalism, and Unitarian Universalism. So they're very powerful words. See if you can connect with them. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic processes within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Respect for the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. The living tradition which we share draws from many sources. Direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. Words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. Wisdom from the world's religions, which inspires us in our ethical and our spiritual life. Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbor as ourselves. humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, and warn us against the idolatries of the mind and spirit. Spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions, which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. Grateful for the religious pluralism which enriches and ennobles our faith. We are inspired to deepen our understanding and expand our vision. As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. Section C-2.2, purposes. The Unitarian Universalist Association shall devote its resources to and exercise its corporate powers for religious, educational, and humanitarian purposes. The primary purpose of the association is to serve the needs of its member congregations, organize new congregations, extend and strengthen Unitarian Universalist institutions, and implement its principles. Section 2.3, which is non-discrimination. The association declares and affirms its special responsibility and that of its member congregations and organizations, that's us, to promote the full participation of persons in all of its and their activities and in the full range of human endeavor without regard to race, ethnicity, gender, disability, affectional or sexual orientation, age, language, citizenship status, economic status, or national origin, and without requiring adherence to any particular interpretation of religion or to any particular religious belief or creed. And finally, freedom of belief. Nothing herein shall be deemed to infringe upon the individual freedom of belief, which is inherent in our Universalist and Unitarian heritages, or to conflict with any statement of purpose, covenant, or bond of union used by any congregation, unless such is used as a creedal test. Let us take those words, hold them for a time of silent meditation. At the Unitarian Universalist Association board meeting on, I believe it's January 19th, I will get and bring back to you for your consideration the second proposal to revise Article 2 of the bylaws. You can see what's the article. The first revision is out there on the website for the Article 2 Study Commission. And I'll be exploring that second one in the service that I'll be doing on January 22nd. That's in 2 weeks. And I'll share a copy with that ahead of time in Windows on the 19th. So why are we doing this? Is the big question. That the first revision got that question. And many people, probably some of you for the first time, you're saying, what? We're changing Article 2? The potential is to change the principles and the purposes and the sources. One reason that we're considering doing this is because the bylaws says that we should do it every 15 years. Just because the bylaws say that we should do that doesn't mean that we should change them. Opposition is already forming for any change at all. There's a group called Save the Principles that's already forming. I think we can all agree that the current language passed in 1985 has stood the test of time, and with a few tweaks has become central to UU identity today. If you'd like to change them, you'd better have a darn good reason, is the refrain that I hear. The opponents are shouting loudly. What I'd like to do for you today, and I accept that as the challenge, is to give you some good reasons to revise these powerful words. The original Article 2 language was developed at the same time as our merger in 1961, because that's when we created the new bylaws. As the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America fought each other tooth and nail, trying to come up with who this new organization was going to be as they merged. Even though we had a lot in common, and that's why we were trying to merge, the historical understanding of Christianity was very different between these two different traditions. Unitarians were anti-Trinitarian, but the Universalists were not. Universalists embraced universal salvation, whereas Unitarians grew out of the Anabaptist tradition that called followers to imitate Jesus. Unitarians rallied around Channing's call for character development, a call for works, not just faith. By the middle of the 20th century, both traditions had welcomed those who didn't embrace Christianity, even those who did not embrace the concept of God, the humanists and the theists. But the Unitarians were more wary of the Universalists' continued attachment to Christian faith and practice. Article 2 was crafted to make room for both without rejecting either, by focusing on shared values rather than shared beliefs. What made our newly merged tradition different from any other religious tradition wasn't our rejection of a creed. We sometimes celebrate that. That's why we're different. The Religious Society of Friends, the Quakers, have no creed, neither do the Jehovah's Witnesses. And what makes us different isn't the use of congregational polity. The anti-authoritarian governance approach that makes each religious organization independent of each other, self-governing and self-supporting. That's also true of all the Baptists, and it's also true of the Quakers and Churches of Christ. What sets us apart is our willingness to canonize any text as authoritative for our congregations. We find inspiration in world scriptures, as well as in philosophy and science, literature, art, and poetry. Some might want to canonize Shakespeare, Alfred North Whitehead, Thoreau, Whitman, and I know a few, maybe some here, who would love Mary Oliver to be one of our saints. I'm deeply grateful as a minister to be able to go to the Tao, to Buddhist suttas, to the Rumi's poetry, to the Upanishads, just to name a few sources that I can bring inspiration for you on Sunday morning. We trust our capacity for discernment in each one of us to guide us toward what is good, true, and beautiful. Not that we can't be deluded, confused, and misled. It is our evolving communal understanding and witness that can serve as the rudder to guide our journey through life. We like to refer to what we do as part of what we call a living tradition, unbound by the past, but trusting the dawning future more. As such, our forming and reforming identity is not locked in language so that it doesn't change. It finds new words, new expressions in each generation. Each new generation recognizes limitations in the old and proposes adaptations for a new day. And this is true of Article 2. Here's some examples of how Article 2 has changed since 1961. In 63, you would have read these words in our principles: to cherish and spread the universal truths in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. To affirm and defend, promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man. World community found in the ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace. That version in 1963 did not have a non-discrimination clause. That was added in 1967. In 72, the Constitution and the bylaws were merged together in one document. And if whatever you see in the bylaws starts with a C, that was what was originally in the Constitution, and everything else doesn't have a C. And they're treated differently in how they're amended. The big change happened in 1985. That's when our current purposes, principles, and sources were formulated. And what drove that was the UU Women's Federation, starting in the early 1980s, who didn't like all of those male references and felt that they need to be changed to be more inclusive in the early document. In 1994, that's when the sixth source of earth-centered spirituality was added. Wasn't there before. In 2009, major changes were offered to rewrite the sources and add other language. And it failed in a very close vote. 2017, the last change that happened in the language was the source that referred then to prophetic women and men, and it was changed to prophetic people to include a wider gender identity. So you can see how there's an evolutionary process of understanding that happens in these processes. Except for the major work done in the 1980s, Article 2 hasn't changed much since then. But you can recognize those changes of who we are. Now, let's explore some of the concerns that are currently on our table that are motivating the changes that you'll hear about in 2 weeks. It's my job to try to motivate those changes. The concerns I'll be discussing are not wordsmithing changes, like changing prophetic women and men to prophetic people. They speak about larger issues that address the whole of the sources and principles. All right, complaint number 1 about Article 2 language that stands out for me has been that there are not enough verbs. Not enough verbs. That's the title that I'm using today. There isn't enough call to action and transformation. Following this critique, I've done my own analysis of the principles and sources of verbs. And here's what I found in the text. The first verb we encounter is to covenant. We use the word covenant in Unitarian Universalism as an agreement for how we aspire to be together as a community. It sets a definition and a direction for positive relations among us and provides a way for us to get back on track after relationship problems have been recognized and addressed. Covenant is a relationship sustaining tool rather than a punishing legal maneuver to decide who is right and who is wrong. The covenant says Unitarian Universalists, as Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the principles. To promote is an active verb to advocate for our values in the world and is as articulated in our principles. Let's go a little deeper. There are no verbs in the first 2. The first defines inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second defines how we should relate to each other with justice, equity, and compassion. The first 2 verbs show up in the third, accept and encourage each other to spiritual growth. This is kind of a soft nudge toward a personal development process. The same could be said for the fourth principle, where we find the verb to search for truth and meaning. The fifth has a passive voice discussing the use of the democratic process. The goal of world community is also passively hoped for. Our engagement with our interdependent web of all existence is a little tenuous. The verb is respect. For me, that's more of a cautionary verb. I respect authorities like the police officers because they might throw me in jail if I run a stoplight or do something that's socially unacceptable. I also respect the authority of the weather in the winter that can so I take some precautions to make sure that I don't get stuck outside in the cold. In 2009, Those changes, they suggested that the word should be changed to reverence for. That's a very different verb to approach the interdependent web of existence of which we are a part. The verbs in the sources are also very interesting. They all are acting upon us. The sources move us, they challenge us, inspire us, call us to respond, counsel us, warn us, celebrate life, and instruct us. They are inward directed influences, except for the great commandment to respond to God's love by loving our neighbor as ourselves. Live in harmony with the rhythms of nature and confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. These sources have more powerful verbs than are found in our principles. The separation of our principles and our sources in our current Article 2 is very relevant to the discontent that is driving change. The powerful verbal directions from our sources to us don't actively translate into common values because we don't all agree on the same sources. If I'm a pagan, I may not feel compelled to respond to the love of a Judeo-Christian God. Humanists may warn us against it as idolatry of the mind and spirit. The powerful verbs of our sources are quarantined to the subscribers of that source who are not required to make a commitment to them. This leads to the second rap against our current language of Article 2. It is very focused on the individual rather than on the collective. The free and responsible search isn't a collective endeavor, it is a personal one. We can encourage each other to spiritual growth, but first we must accept each other individually. Each individual has inherent worth and dignity, but no institutional structure is called out for reverence or appreciation. We promise each other mutual trust and support as we deepen our understanding and expand our vision. The words and deeds of prophetic people are optional sources, depending on our personal preference. The power of the sources we draw on are limited by our commitment to the right of conscience of the individual. Sadly, there is little in Article 2 to counterbalance the strong commitment to individualism summarized in the freedom of belief statement. Nothing herein shall be deemed to infringe upon the individual freedom of belief, which is inherent in Unitarian and Universalist heritage. The component that could be the glue to hold Unitarian Universalism together could be possibly a theological reference that binds us together. In the Abrahamic religious traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the unity is the affirmation and commitment to God in whatever form that tradition defines God, as an association of congregations seeking to bridge believers and unbelievers in one religious tradition. We cannot go there. The word, though, that most Unitarian Universalists believe binds us together is the word love. The imprecise definition of love in English creates a big problem for us using it as a theological foundation. The Greeks have three beautiful, expansive terms for love: eros, philia, and agape, erotic love, familial love, and transcendent love. Buddhists talk about four expressions of love: metta, karuna, mudita, and upeka, which translate as goodwill to all, compassion, sympathetic joy, equanimous love. For you use the combination of agape and metta, of this transcendent love and this goodwill to all, and seem to me to communicate what Unitarian Universalists mean when we talk about love as a unifying principle. It shows up in all the other places too, but it has an elevated quality beyond the personal or the tribal kind of love that one might experience for another person or your family or maybe your team or your country or community. I think that it might even be something more grand, like a drive toward the social that arises again and again at the most elemental level of existence. Standing on the side of love, or now as we talk about it as siding with love, has been a powerful way for us to talk about what drives our social justice work. Maybe it belongs in our principles too. The last complaint you'll see addressed in the current revisions is a lack of commitment and accountability. We say that we have these values that we cherish. What are we willing to promise that we're going to do with them? What are we willing to be held accountable for following through on that promise? The eighth principle was created to address that glaring failure. The lofty statements that we've made about the need for anti-racism, anti-oppression, multicultural work, especially in 1997 at General Assembly with our resolution titled Journey Towards Wholeness, has had weak follow-through to strive for congregational and institutional transformation. This is an area of our predominantly white congregations don't put on the front burner unless a Black person gets killed by a police officer, and then for about 6 months. That gives you kind of an overview of the importance of Article 2 in Unitarian Universalism and some of the discontents that we've had about its language. Many people are just fine, love the language of Article 2. I do too. And as we found out in 2009, there is interest in change, but it's a close vote. If the Article 2 Study Commission has done a good job this time around, what I bring to you in 2 weeks, I hope, will give you new language to express our identity in a way that can better unlock our potential. And my hope is that you'll hear in that language resonance of the old language, maybe amplified in new, better ways. And I guarantee you love is going to be in the center of that document. So come back January 22nd, and we will talk about this some more. And if you want to stay after the service, we can also have some conversation about how you feel about Article 2 and how you feel about making changes to it, because it's a big deal. And I'm very excited about it as a way for us to deepen our own sense of who we are and our identity and open a greater door for us in the future.
Good morning. I'm Kate Pierce-Nims, and I'm your service associate for today's service. I also serve as secretary for the congregation on the Board of Trustees, and usually during service, I'm up in the balcony behind the cameras as multimedia technician. Before I introduce the offering, we need to note that with the exception of OWL OWL for grades 8 and 9, Sunday morning programming for children and youth ends at 11:15. If you have children in pre-K through 5th grade, please pick them up from their classrooms at that time. Older kids will be released on their own at 11:15 to reconnect with their grown-ups. Please feel free to leave the service when it's time to pick up your children. An important way that we celebrate life each Sunday is by offering an opportunity to practice generosity. Members and friends support our congregation with an annual pledge paid throughout the year. Another way to support the good work of this congregation is by making a generous contribution as we pass the plate, or via one of the options shown on this next slide. If you are joining us virtually, you can click on the tiny URL link in the chat window to contribute, or you can send a text to the number that will be shown on the screen. The examples on the slide show how to label your text to indicate the amount and purpose of your gift. We must now say goodbye to our Facebook friends. Consider joining us on Zoom next time or visit us in person at 405 Washington Avenue in Albany. You can find more information at albanyuu.org. Our offertory music is The Quiet Center by Thomas Kieseker, performed by Olga Martinez.
Good morning. My name is Randy Rosette, and I'm on duty today as a pastoral care associate. Also on duty today is Sandy Stone. This is a time set aside in our service for sharing significant personal milestones in our lives. There are several ways to share a joy or sorrow. On Zoom, you can click on the raise hand symbol. The technician will call on you to unmute and share your joy or sorrow. Those in Community Hall will be able to come forward and select a stone to place in the bowl on the table. If you wish, you can share your joy or sorrow at the microphone. Please also consider sharing your sorrow after the service with one of us, either Sandy or myself today. We'll begin by reading the items that were submitted this past week. That will be followed by spoken joys and sorrows on Zoom, and finish with any joys and sorrows to be shared here today. Chris, are there any previously submitted joys and sorrows?
We have none that I have seen. We do have some people on Zoom. Let's begin with Michael Hornsby. Michael, unmute and share, please.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted, first of all, I wanted to express my gratitude to the members of the Caring Network. Following my shoulder surgery, they did, just a wonderful job in bringing me food, rides, things like that. I really appreciated it, and then along the bad news is that I tested positive for COVID on Friday. So I'm feeling pretty awful right now.
Thank you. And now we move on to Jay Holly.
Chris, before you go to Jay, can you summarize for us what Michael said? Because we couldn't hear it in Community Hall.
Okay, I'm sorry. Michael shared with us that he was grateful for all of the help and support that he got from Caring Network members, and that recently on Friday he unfortunately tested positive for COVID, so he's not feeling too well today.
Thank you.
Right. Make sure. And now we move to Jay Holly. Jay?
Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to say that on Thursday, my mother celebrated her 93rd birthday, and I'm going to be going down next weekend to help celebrate with her.
All right, great, thanks. And now we move to Kristen Abbas. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm in the library behind the balcony right now. So I can actually hear myself through the wall. I know we've been keeping a lot of folks up to date on our son Benjamin's progress. He's 19. He's been attending Rochester Institute of Technology. His sophomore year of high school, he got multiple concussions, one in February and two in late May. Unfortunately, he is still struggling from long-term post-concussion syndrome, which has unfortunately impacted his ability to really be academically successful in college. So he is going to be taking some time off from school starting this semester. He also got a herniated disc in his back 2 years ago, which has it gives him constant pain and has limited his ability to sit, stand, walk for long periods of time. So we're looking into back surgery after 2 years of physical therapy, which just doesn't seem to be making enough of an impact. So it's hard when you're 19 and you've had years and years of dreaming about what your life is going to be post high school. And of course, having finished high school during the pandemic. And it's just been a rough couple of years. And if people could just keep him in their thoughts and prayers as we navigate this and try and figure out how to get him on the road to success and what he really wants to accomplish with his life. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And now we turn to Community Hall.
Those wishing to move a stone are now invited to come forward. If you wish to speak your joy or sorrow, you can wait with the usher. Who's the usher? Kathy, at the microphone.
I'm Laura Kayford. This may seem a trivial thing, but it is a milestone in my life. For 87 years, I've been able to say that I have all my own teeth, but as of last Friday, that is no longer true. Well, I'm glad it's not more earth-shaking.
Hi, excuse me. I'm Nancy Willie Schiff. This may sound like an announcement, but it really has become very personal for me. Tomorrow, there will be a rally at the Capitol to support passage of the Medical Aid in Dying Act. Many people here will be there. And I hope some others, if you're interested in joining us, see me at coffee hour. We've been advocating for this for 7 years in New York and probably longer before the bill was drafted. And it would allow people who are terminally ill to have a choice about how they want to die. It's a really important thing to do. And it's starting to, looks like it may actually happen soon. So it's really important.
Hi, my name is Chuck Manning, and I learned this morning that Mary Freeman has died. She was in her 90s, long-term member of the congregation, along with her husband, Sam, and she had been a president of the congregation and was also one of the cohorts in the group that Barb and I always looked at as role models.
Thanks, Chuck. I'm Jan McCracken. I'm up here also to express my really deep shock, even though she was so old, about Mary dying. I just found out this morning when I walked in, and I'm just thinking about my mom. They were such good friends, and all the people here that are still alive that were in that pack, and that now we have new packs of people, and these folks really contributed a lot to this place. And I'm thinking of our covenant where we say that part of what we do is revere the past and just to remember. And Mary was a wonderful person. I grew up with her kids here, and I just want to acknowledge that. And I'm so sad, but remember Sam, remember Mary, and all the good things they did for us.
Hi, good morning. I'm Ellen Thea Chernoff, and I have two joys to share with you. The first one, some of you already know, but I don't think I shared officially here. Many of you know my son, Michael. My first joy is that he and his fiance survived the storm in Buffalo. That's where he lives now. The second is that he got engaged a while back and will be getting married this summer in July. So that's my first joy. The second joy, which kind of sounds like an announcement too, but is that we've been able to gather together and therefore have art for us to share while we eat, drink, and chat a little bit. So today I am asking you to pay special attention to the artwork that's up there. And I'm going to mention the names of some of the artists. You can look for them by their name tag. And I hope, there's one right there, Kathy Harris. I hope that you will make it a point to ask the artists about their work, even if you're not interested in buying it. And in particular, so I'm just going to mention a few names. There's Kathy Harris. There is the daughter of Anne. We have three young people, one of our high school students, who is Katie Myers, and two little ones who are Otavia and Elizabeth. I don't know if they're here today, but if you see them with the little ones, you might ask them something like, what colors do you like to use when you make art? And you can talk to Jan McCracken about her nephew's work. I don't see Peter Meissner, I see Donna, but I can let Peter know that my son, who was the graduate student in the arts in Buffalo, admired Peter's photographs. And the other person I see is Barbara Spink. I don't know if I've missed anybody, but look at the names on the list and look for name tags, and please talk to and celebrate our artists today. Thank you.
As I select one more stone on behalf of those joys and sorrows that are left unspoken, let us hold all that we've heard and felt in our hearts.
Let us turn inward now and seek the center. Do not be distracted by the encrusted dishes in the sink, the tarnished silverware in the drawer, the musty clothes on the floor, piles of unread books on the nightstand. Finding the center doesn't depend on when the dishes get done, the silver is polished, the clothes are clean, or the books are all read. The center isn't a task to complete or a mission to accomplish. It is a place of balance through which energy flows and is released. It is a state of clarity that permits the mind to make sense of the world. It is a capacity to connect that brings together parts into a whole. And we seek our own center. And we seek our own center of what we know is good, true, and beautiful about ourselves, about the world around us. Following the signs and signals from our hearts. From that center, may our love flow out to the world. So be it.
We'd like to get to know guests and visitors to our service. If you'd like to tell us who you are and where you're from, those here in Community Hall should stand or raise your hand, and our usher will bring you a microphone so that everyone can hear you. Those joining us on Zoom can click on the raised hand symbol. Our technician will invite you to unmute and introduce yourself. Again, it's the raised hand symbol, not just physically raising your hand. You can also click on the visitor link that you'll find now in the chat window. Do we have any visitors on Zoom in Community Hall?
Kate, I don't see anybody raising their hand here.
It's just the usual crowd today. Well, in any case, thank you and welcome to all who have joined us today. There will be opportunities to socialize and welcome each other after the service, both for those on Zoom and here in Community Hall. And for a community message / announcement, the Board of Trustees at Albany UU is hosting an afternoon of fun and conversation, and you're all invited. This event will help to develop our ministry going forward by focusing on the questions, what connects you to Albany UU, and what would make you feel more connected? An open questions cafe will be held on Saturday, January 21st from 2 to 4 p.m. with a social hour to follow with refreshments. We ask that those interested please visit albanyuu.org/open-questions to register. And there'll be more information on that page as well as in Windows Weekly. And you're always welcome to reach out to members of the Board of Trustees for more information about the event. I also draw your attention to the announcements printed in the order of service and that you'll see later on the screen. And our closing words selection today is That Which is Worthy of Doing by Steve J. Crump. That which is worthy of doing, create with your hands. That which is worthy of repeating, speak with a clear voice. That which is worthy of remembering, hold in your hearts. And that which is worthy of living, go and live it now. The words of our closing song will appear on the screen, so I have been told. Please join us in singing hymn 1028, Fire of Commitment, words by Mary Catherine Morn and Jason Shelton, music by Jason Shelton and performed by Olga.
If you can rise as you are able.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in the words that will be shown on the screen. Here they are. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Those on Zoom are encouraged to join a breakout room for conversation and fellowship. You can click to accept the breakout room assignment when it appears on your screen, and those in Community Hall are invited to attend coffee hour, where you should specifically look at the artwork, we've been told. We especially encourage guests and visitors and potential newcomers who are a little shy to join us for coffee and refreshments. Folks on Zoom and in Community Hall are welcome to attend a congregational response to discuss the service topic. You can stay in the same Zoom meeting or right here in Community Hall, and the discussion will begin in a few minutes. Those wishing to socialize with others are asked to exit Community Hall so that the congregational response can start promptly. We are so glad that you joined us today. This concludes our service.
Yes.